Today's topic is why nothing feels fun after you scroll. We're going to go over who this is for. I'm going to talk about the exact experience that you probably have and that I had in the past. Go over the dopamine baseline, which is very instrumental in this phenomenon. Then we're going to talk about why this is a problem and finally how to get out of this cycle. Let's begin by clarifying who this is for. If you've ever been scrolling for a couple hours and then you finally put your phone down and you just feel a state of emptiness, not even sad or let down necessarily, just empty and very lethargic, like nothing sounds fun and you don't even know what to do with yourself for the rest of the day, this video is for you and it's going to explain why that happens. I want to be clear, this is not one of those you're lazy videos. There is actually a chemical brain mechanism behind this empty feeling. And once you understand this, it is a lot easier to begin to fix it. So stick with me to the last part of this video because that is where the action steps will be. The experience I'm talking about is you sit down and you either don't have anything immediate to do or you do have something to do, but you really don't want to do it. You want to procrastinate. You open Instagram or TikTok or YouTube, whatever app of your choice, and you start scrolling. And one video turns into 10 and 100, etc. And before you know it, it's already been an hour or more. The whole time, it does feel quite good. You're entertained and you're laughing at the crazy reels that your friends sent you, and your brain is getting hit with the dopamine over and over again. It's a pretty good feeling. Eventually though, you stop because you remember that you kind of wasted a lot more time than you meant to, and you probably actually did have something to do. And whenever you put your phone down, nothing sounds interesting anymore. Nothing in real life seems fun in comparison. You don't feel like doing anything productive. Even the stuff that you normally would enjoy feels boring in comparison. So the only thing that you can do that even sounds appealing is to pick the phone back up to try and recapture the same feeling that you just had. That is the cycle that we want to avoid. In the rest of this video, I'm going to show you exactly what is happening when you're in this cycle and eventually how to get out of it. One concept you need to know is the dopamine baseline. The reason that this cycle happens comes down to this dopamine baseline. This can get really sciencey. I'm not a scientist. I'm just going to explain how it had an effect on my life and how it impacts you. This is a very important concept. Your brain has a certain normal level of dopamine. This is your baseline, and the baseline is what determines how motivated and interested you will be in your everyday life, the activities, the more normal activities, shall we say, that you have to get done. The part that would be considered boring. When you do something that is very high in dopamine, you spike it way above the baseline, and that's what makes things feel fun. Scrolling is actually the perfect storm for getting these spikes because it checks a lot of boxes that make it incomparable in fun to real life. There's constant novelty, it's always unpredictable because of the algorithms. You don't know what video you're gonna see next. There's no effort required, none physical or mental. You don't have to do anything except pick up your phone and open your app. There's an instant reward every couple seconds. That feeling of not knowing what video it's gonna be and then it's a funny one, that's an instant reward that happens repeatedly. There's nothing else in your day-to-day life that checks all three of these boxes at the same time. So naturally, when you're scrolling, your dopamine is gonna shoot way up above its usual level. The problem that creates though is that your dopamine doesn't just go back down to that baseline level where it was before. It actually goes a little bit below it, and it slightly lowers your baseline overall, because when trying to compare real life to that experience you just had, it can't. That drop and the dip underneath the normal level is what you are feeling whenever you put the phone down and start feeling lethargic. That is the emptiness. It's not just that you're bored afterwards, it's that you have low motivation and that weird state where nothing else even feels worth doing and you don't even really want to get up. That is the price that you end up paying when you're trying to compare the more often occurring boring parts of your day to the most exciting and unpredictable part, which is that scrolling. When you think about it, this actually makes a lot of sense because you just spent an hour or more watching an algorithm that you personally trained, you built brick by brick, as the kids say, over hundreds of hours to show you the most entertaining content on the entire planet, and also it happens to align specifically with what you're interested in again, because of those algorithms. Nothing in your real life was designed by a team of engineers to be so stimulating. So now you're supposed to go do your homework or work on whatever you have to do that is actually relevant, but isn't necessarily very exciting. Of course, it'll feel harder. Your brain got used to a level of stimulation that is literally impossible for anything in your real life to match. And now, normal life is standing there trying to compete with it, and it is never going to be able to do that. If you've experienced what I'm talking about, this is the point where scrolling is no longer just a harmless way to pass time like any other, and it becomes a problem. When you're sitting in that unmotivated, empty state, you do not want to stay in it. It doesn't feel very good. And like I said, the fastest way out of it is to go back to the thing that caused it, which is the phone. And you scroll again, which will give you another spike and cause another drop, and this cycle will keep repeating. And this is how people get into phone addictions, or they end up spending all day scrolling, even when they know that they had a bunch of stuff to do, and that they even had urgent stuff to do, and at the very least they could be working on other things. If you're in this loop, the spike and then the crash loop, day after day after day, it can start to feel like this is just kind of who you are. And this is why I push back on people who say that this is purely a discipline problem. That is definitely part of it. It very well could be, but it's not that simple. It is not the only problem that we have to deal with. You're also caught in a brain chemistry cycle that's actively working against you, and that cycle is what keeps dragging you back into the phone, and why nothing feels fun outside of that. But just because this is working against you does not give you a pass to scroll all day. Oh, it's engineered to affect my brain. Yeah, sure, we can acknowledge that and also recognize that something has to change. I'm going to come back to that because I want to clarify the fact that it could very well be both of these problems hurting you at the same time. Is this just laziness? I want to tell you my story and how this looked in my own life a couple years ago, because I was very much stuck in this loop, except I didn't have anybody to tell me about it and make me realize it for quite a while. I'd be sitting around quite bored. I'd open my phone, scroll for often hours, and then I would try to go do something productive afterward, homework or something, and I just could not do it. I could not focus. I would sit there, stare at my computer, try to start something for a couple minutes, and it would never really work. My attention span could not tolerate even such a simple thing, and I would be right back to scrolling on my phone. At the time, I was very confused, and I was wondering if I was lazy or if I had no discipline or something, but I do not think that was it. Because in other parts of life, when the phone wasn't present, I did actually have a work ethic. The problem was the days when I scrolled a lot, when I had completely fried my dopamine for the day, often when I was on in the morning first thing. Anything that required a real effort felt way harder than it actually should have, which in comparison makes you feel lazy even if you're not actually that lazy. The reason you can't get yourself to do anything after scrolling is not that you are incapable of doing anything. It is that you're trying to operate after you've already drained your entire motivation for the day by lowering your baseline, and you're running in a deficit, so to speak, of motivation. I really truly believe that you only have a certain amount of willpower each day and a motivation each day, and you definitely can easily burn through that on the phone. The last thing that you want to be doing is trying to use that limited motivation when you're in that state where the dopamine baseline has just crashed. To better clarify this, I've come up with a simple analogy, which is a credit card. This is how you have to treat your dopamine, but not one of those where you're responsible with it and it gets rewards. It's a credit card that can only hurt you. At the very least, it's neutral. Every big, effortless spike is not free. You're borrowing, so to speak, on credit, that good feeling. And the crash afterward is the bill that you have to pay. In this particular credit card, though, you don't just pay the bill back, flat fee. It already comes with interest every time, which is why the low feels worse than the good that the high felt. So when you're scrolling for 2 hours in the morning, it is a lot deeper than just wasting 2 hours. You put your whole day into debt at the beginning of the day, and everything you try to do for the rest of it, you're doing in a deficit, in debt. That's why nothing feels fun. The goal is not to never feel good or never have fun, certainly. The goal is to stop running throughout the day on borrowed credit dopamine that will make you feel bored and unmotivated for the rest of the day. And you may be thinking, I'm against dopamine as a concept or against having fun, which is not at all the case. I do not mean to vilify dopamine. The problem is the way that you go about it. how the phone gives you the dopamine, which is this case, spikes it insanely high, no effort required, no sort of delayed gratification at all, repeatedly day after day, and lowers the baseline. Dopamine that you actually earn, the good feeling after anything involving delayed gratification, after finishing the real work, finally finishing that assignment, or anything that comes with effort, is the kind that you want to cultivate. And that is totally fine, and you want to get more of that dopamine, if anything. That's way you do not get the sudden crash because you didn't have that spike all the way up there to allow a crash in the first place. Earned dopamine and cheap dopamine are totally different things. I did want to clarify that. You might be saying or thinking, because I have been talking about brain chemistry and all this cycle stuff, that you can't help it if the phone is actually messed with your brain chemistry. I want to be really direct here. I totally think that's a cope, and the responsibility still lands on you, absolutely. Understanding the mechanism is not an excuse to keep scrolling. It's actually the opposite, because now that you have the knowledge, you don't have the excuse of ignorance. Yeah, there's a chemical cycle, but you're the one who opens the app, and you're the one who has the phone, and you are ultimately the one who has to close it. Knowing exactly what's happening in your brain does not take that responsibility away from you, because nobody else is going to fix it. You know what's causing the empty feeling and precisely how to stop it. What you do with that knowledge now is totally up to you. If you are used to this cycle every day, this is not going to be an easy thing to do. That's why just deleting all your apps never worked, at least for me, and probably hasn't worked for you in the past. It definitely feels boring if you even try to go a day without it, much less a week or indefinitely. At least that's how it felt for me. You can feel the boredom though, as with any emotion. You can acknowledge that it's there and you just don't have to act on it. Just because you're feeling an emotion doesn't mean you have to let it determine how your day and how your lifestyle in general actually is. Now, what should you do to get out of this deficit? A couple simple things. Stop scrolling in the morning, please. If the very first thing you do is grab your phone and go on those apps, you've already set your whole day up to have that low, unmotivated feeling afterward, because the rest of the day is not going to compare to the excitement and all the dopamine that you've just got first thing. Before you've done anything, everything for the rest of the day, has to compete with that. Try to delay going on your phone as long as you possibly can. Only use it for the essential stuff. You will feel a huge difference in how the rest of your day goes if you can even wait a couple hours after waking up each day to go on it. Of course, there's going to be some essential stuff. For instance, I'll always look at my notes app after I wake up, but that strictly has what I got to do for the day. Obviously, you may have a message, you may need your phone for work. Do not go on anything non-essential is what I mean, for as long as you possibly can. Make the first thing that you do after waking up a little bit difficult, but also a little bit productive. I've heard people say after waking up, first thing you do is go make your bed or drink like a liter of water or something. I don't actually know how much that is, a quart, I think, and go outside for 10 minutes, something like that. All of that is stuff that will get you out of bed, and it will also have you feeling better once you've accomplished it, even if you don't want to do it initially, you just want to lie in bed. This is the opposite of scrolling, where you feel worse after doing it, even though you feel good in the moment. One thing that I do is, to write down what I have to do in my notes app the night before. So the first thing I see whenever I do open my phone is all those stuff I have to do. And it reminds me so that I do not have to think about it, because thinking about it and being unsure of what to do is absolutely a bad recipe if you want to avoid scrolling. That is what got me on the phone on many occasions. Anything that you associate with effort or delayed gratification helps to keep your baseline stable, which is what you want, instead of spiking it up and crashing it down and having that vicious cycle throughout the day and continually lowering the baseline and making normal things feel less and less fun. When nothing feels fun though, understand that that empty feeling is a temporary one. This is the most important one if you're trying to quit the phone addiction in the long term. Whenever you stop scrolling, you are almost certainly going to feel that low empty state for a while. And that is actually the normal thing people feel. That is a withdrawal symptom, actually. That is the baseline resetting itself. Do not feel that and interpret it as that you need to go back to your phone just to recapture the same feeling. That is not a signal to go back. It is a withdrawal symptom. Just like any other addiction out there, those symptoms will always appear when trying to recover from it. It is the exact thing that you're trying to get through. Hopefully now you understand why you aren't motivated to do stuff after scrolling and why stuff doesn't feel fun. When you spike your dopamine way above its natural baseline and it swings right back below it, that dip is the emptiness that you feel. That is why nothing feels fun. And because sitting in that dip is uncomfortable, you end up going back to the thing that caused it. And that is what creates the cycle and makes things feel less and less fun. The way to get out of that is not to try to use sheer willpower alone to get stuff done in that state of low motivation. It's way harder to get stuff done. It's to avoid the cycle to the best of your ability in the first place. Start your day with a little bit of effort instead of picking up the phone immediately. When the empty feeling shows up, recognize that that is your brain resetting. That is a withdrawal from an addiction, because that's absolutely an addiction, what it is. Not your brain begging you to go back on the phone. That is the worst way to deal with it. When you can manage to sit through that feeling and not act on it, that's how you get your baseline back. When that does happen, normal life stops feeling so boring, because it was never actually that boring. It just felt that way since your baseline was so cooked from scrolling. Hopefully you got value from this video. Please subscribe for similar content. Goodbye.